The House Transportation, Mobility, and Infrastructure Committee will come to order. Would the clerk please take attendance?
Chair Shannon.
Present.
Representatives McDonald.
Present.
Coleman.
Here.
Conlon.
Here.
Farhat.
Here.
Fitzgerald.
Here.
Hoskins.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Outman.
Here.
Roth.
Here.
Bruck.
Present.
Koontz.
Here.
St. Germain.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 13 members present, a quorum.
Thank you. I need a motion to adopt the minutes from last meeting, June 13th. Rep. Hoskins makes that motion. Seeing no opposition, the minutes are adopted. Today on the agenda, we'll be taking up testimony on and voting out House Bills 4082, 4602, as well as Senate Bill 43 and House Bill 4706. To get things started, we have Rep. Whitmer on House Bill 4082. Thank you for joining us. The floor is yours.
Good morning, Chair Shannon and members of our committee. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be with you this morning to talk about House Bill 4082. This bill would dedicate and memorialize the portion of Highway I-96 in Ionia County, beginning at mile marker 76 and extending east to mile marker 77 as Barry Lynn House Memorial Highway. In 2020, Barry was an operating engineer on the job cutting concrete and fixing our Michigan highways when a driver struck him, leaving Barry critically injured, which soon after sadly led to his passing. When I was out in our district in one of my neighborhoods, I had the pleasure of meeting his sister Wendy, who brought this to our attention. It may be a small favor, but memorializing the portion of highway I feel is the least we can do to honor Barry and his family for his hard work fixing our roads. In front of you are the victim impact statements from Barry's sister Wendy as well as his daughter Emily. If it's all right with you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to read a portion from each. So this is from Barry's sister Wendy. I hardly know where to begin. I have had so many emotions since my brother died: grief, heartache, disbelief, anger, disappointment, sorrow, but mostly just sadness. For the rest of my lifetime, I will never again see him walk through the door with that devilish grin or hear from him call my name asking for advice. He was the baby of the family, the youngest of the three of us. As if losing a child, it just doesn't seem natural to lose a sibling before me. Barry was 54 years old. He had a lot of life to live. It just doesn't seem fair. He didn't deserve to die. I miss him and think about him every day. I think of all the things he will miss: his daughter's graduation from college, her wedding day, his grandchildren. He was very proud of his one child, Emily, and he was a wonderful father. Barry was a hard worker. He had already worked a complete day that day, Tuesday, September 24th. He went home, showered, ate, and was then called back into work that evening when he was hit. And then this is a section out of his daughter Emily's victim statement. Not a day goes by that I don't think of my dad. Not an hour, not 30 minutes, not even one. Every night when I decide I should force myself to sleep, I look for him in the dark. I think of him when I go to put on socks because I have his feet. I look at myself longer in the mirror to find resemblance to him. After it rains, I take deeper breaths because the smell of the fallen soaked leaves reminds me of his favorite time of year. His favorite activity is hunting. Every deer is my dad. Every fish will be my dad, and every shadow will be my dad. I hope members of this committee will support this bill to memorialize one of our road workers, Barry Haas, for this portion of the highway I mentioned. I'd like to thank all of you for your consideration and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Representative, for sharing Barry's story with us. I do have one card to read in. Eric Downey does not wish to speak, supports the bill. And so, Rep, I do need a motion. Rep Coleman makes a motion to report House Bill 4082 with recommendation. Would the clerk please take a roll call vote?
On the motion to report, Chair Shannon.
Yes.
Representatives McDonald.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Conlon.
Yes.
Farhat.
Yes.
Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Hoskins.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Outman.
Yes.
Roth.
Yes.
Bruck.
Yes.
Koontz.
Yes.
St. Germain.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 13 yeas, no nays, no pass. House Bill 4082 is reported with recommendation.
Thank you, Clerk. House Bill 4082 is reported with recommendation. Next up, we have Representative Wilson Jr. testifying on House Bill 4602. Thank you for coming in today, Representative. If you would like, you could introduce. It's up to you.
Yes. I'll let them introduce after I kind of give you a little backdrop of the House bill here. Thank you for allowing me to come and testify on House Bill 4602. This bill would name a portion of I-94 from Michigan Ave to Rossonville Road, the Washtenaw County Vietnam Veterans Memorial Highway. And why this location is so special to us in Washtenaw County is that we also have a Vietnam Veterans Wall that is in Ypsilanti Township, and it's been there for, I believe, 32 years now. And also the motto, I want to tell you about this particular chapter of VVA, Vietnam Veterans of America, Charles S. Kettles, Chapter 310. And their motto, never again shall a vet return home from battle, to be made to feel alone and unappreciated. This memorial has 76 men that gave their lives during the Vietnam conflict from 1959 to 1975. I want to read to you a little inscription that's on that wall as well. To honor and remember all Vietnam War veterans from Washtenaw County, they answered our country's call and served honorably at a time and in a place that divided our nation. They did what they thought was right. May they never be forgotten. Remember those who returned and lost the struggle here at home, those who still wage a battle long forgotten by all others, and especially these men who made the supreme sacrifice or are still missing in action. Remember them all. Also, I want to give you a little backdrop of a particular individual that this VVA chapter has been named after, Charles S. Kettles. Under President Obama in 2016, he was awarded the Medal of Honor for his bravery as a helicopter commander during the war, in which he led a rescue mission to save 44 soldiers. And then in 2020, December of 2020, President Trump and the Congress passed a bill to rename the VA hospital in Ann Arbor after Lieutenant Colonel Charles S. Kettles. Now it is the Lieutenant Colonel Charles S. Kettles VA Hospital in Ann Arbor. So that's a little backdrop of why I feel this is so important to us. And I also have some gentlemen here who are VVA members of Chapter 310, and I'll let them introduce themselves. We'll start with Mr. President here of our chapter.
My name is Vance the Dog Man McCrum. I'm a member of VVA Chapter 310, named after Charles Kettles.
I'm Al Merritt. Thank you for hearing us. We appreciate this. I was in Vietnam in '69 and '70, and I was a gun truck driver. So, John?
Gentlemen, can you make sure to click this? Thank you.
My name is John Luker. I served during the Vietnam era in Panama. I'm a member of the chapter and I'm secretary.
My name is Eric Downey. I was served in the Navy. I made 2 combat cruises to Vietnam, 1965 and 1967 on the Coral Sea and the Ticonderoga. And I'm a big supporter. I live just a mile from the memorial, and this means so much to us. And maybe a short piece of road just seems so
Can I
so
say
big
something
to
else?
everybody else, but so small to me. So, thank you.
I think one of the important things about renaming that section of the highway after the Washtenaw County Vietnam Veterans Memorial itself is that there are still family members of those 76 that are on our memorial, including 2 MIAs. When that memorial was dedicated in November of 1991, we had 3 MIAs, but Captain Wagner's remains were recovered and returned, so now he is on our memorial versus on the bench surrounding the memorial. It pleases my heart that we're doing this. Excuse me. There's 76 families. Some of them still reside in the Washtenaw County area. And for them to drive down the highway and see a sign, right now the only sign present there is one directing them to the memorial. But now that it's going to be called the Washtenaw County Vietnam Veterans Memorial Highway, it's going to warm their hearts as well. And there are 214 members of this chapter that are all in favor of this bill to be passed to memorialize the memorial. And I thank the committee and I thank the representative for bringing it forward, and thank you.
When I'm sure you've all heard the stories about how Vietnam veterans were treated when they came back from deployment in Vietnam. It didn't matter if you were in Vietnam or Korea, Germany, Panama, you all got treated the same way. And naming a little section of the highway might not be a bad way to counteract that, but there's actually good news from that. That kind of treatment is what got the Vietnam veterans to get together in the first place, and partly to look out for themselves. But as our motto for our chapter, and then the national motto, is never again will one generation of veterans abandon another. That has been what has been the glue for the Vietnam Veterans of America nationwide, and it's why people coming back from Operation Desert Storm and Iraqi freedom, and enduring freedom, have been treated the way they have, because Vietnam veterans were at the airport ready to greet them and make sure they were treated properly. Vietnam veterans were the ones who helped Congress decide that they needed to address what happens to veterans when they return home in a much better way. And I think what this means, and then of course, the Vietnam veterans were also the ones that said, hey, look, it's not just the service member that serves, but it's the family that stays home. And it's the family that has to support that vet with all of whatever damage they endured at home. They're serving too. So we tried to include the family and caregivers and loved ones in our effort to make sure that never again will one generation of veterans abandon another or their families. So I think that when you rename that one section of the highway, it's not going to be relevant just to us, just to our families, but it'll remind the rest of America that we need to make sure that even though Vietnam veterans are slowly dying off, that mission is still an American mission. We must remember the future. Thank you very much for giving us a chance to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, first of all, let me just say individually, Mr. Downey, Mr. McCrum, Mr. Luker, Mr. Merritt, thank you so much for your service to our country. We really do appreciate it. We know how difficult that time was, and the way that you were treated when you came back was awful. And so if we can do one small thing to recognize your bravery and sacrifice, I'm sure that all of our committee members would be able to afford that to you. So I do have one question, Representative Bruck.
Thank you. As a veteran that spent 4 years in the deserts of Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria, I want to say thank you for your service. And I also want to say that Vietnam vets were our biggest supporters coming home. So I just want to say to you, welcome home. So thank you for your service, gentlemen. And I support this bill.
Any other questions or comments? I do have one card to read in. Wishing to speak, I guess, is Al. No, Al. Al's up there. Yeah, Al's up there. Yep. Never mind, my mistake. So we need to go ahead and make a motion. Rep. Conlon makes a motion to report House Bill 4602 with recommendation. Will the clerk please take a roll call vote?
On the motion to report, Chair Shannon.
Yes.
Representatives McDonald.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Conlon.
Yes.
Farhat.
Yes.
Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Hoskins.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Outman.
Yes.
Roth.
Yes.
Bruck.
Yes.
Coots.
Yes.
St. Germain.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, 13 yeas, no nays, no pass, the motion prevails.
House Bill 4602 is reported with recommendation. Thank you, Representative, and thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to Senate Bill 43, we have Katie Okowski here to testify on behalf of Senator Cherry. As you may know, Senator Cherry is in session right now, so thank you, Katie, for coming. Floor is yours.
Good morning, Chair Shannon and members of the committee. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to testimony for Senate Bill 43 today and for giving us this time and space. Senator Cherry, as Rep. Shannon said, sends his regrets as he's on the session floor this morning. To give a little background on Senate Bill 43, what we're looking to do here is to require MDOT to put down concrete barriers to improve worker safety in work zones for our construction workers. Every year in Michigan, there's 3 to 4 road worker deaths due to traffic accidents on the job. But over the past few years, we've seen dramatic increases in the number of deaths that we're seeing on these roadways. To prevent these deaths and ensure our construction workers are getting home safe to their families, we're looking to seek these new protections with these concrete barriers. For a quick summary of Senate Bill 43, it amends Public Act 165 of 1917, and it will require MDOT to use concrete barriers or equivalent temporary barriers whenever they're fully closing a highway to traffic for when they're doing construction, or for when they're partially closing freeways at night when visibility is already reduced. These rules will not be in effect for whenever we're doing emergency repairs that take less than 3 days. In the Senate, in the S1 sub that was passed through the Senate, this was added by Senator Kleinfeld in consultation with MDOT and our workers groups. It expands on our original bill and allows for the closures of the ramps at the very beginning and allows MDOT to determine design and location placement of the different barriers that we're looking for. It also allows MDOT to determine that if the barriers will pose any additional risks to the road workers, that extra precautions will be added to the contracts as they're moving forward. With that, that's a pretty simple way to go through it. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And if there's anything I can't answer, I'll bring it back to the senator for further comment.
I think it might be a good idea to have our next testimony and then take questions after that, if that works. Okay, so thank you. Just stay close. No, you can go back, but just stay close because we might bring you back up here for some questions. Thank you. Okay, so next up we have, so we're continuing on Senate Bill 43. We have William Miller with the operating engineers here to testify in support.
Good morning, and thank you. So on behalf of, well, first, William Miller, Political Director, Operating Engineers, crane operator by trade. I went to the apprenticeship, worked on the roads before. I'm also County Commissioner in Oakland County, going on my 3rd term. So on behalf of Douglas W. Stockwell and our 14,000 members, we are very appreciative this bill is coming back up. I have to thank a couple other people. We got Eric Chappelle, who worked last year on this. We worked diligently on this. We worked with MDOT, State Police. It was like a 2-3 year process. We finally got this bill that we see in front of you today. And we amended it to what works for everybody, which I believe that's where we're at now. So too many workers are dying. I'll give you a quick story. Mr. Schnell, one of our members, and you might have heard the story before, but he was a 324 member, worked his way up to be the safety guy on days. He had 2 years to retire. One of our other members had a son that was playing in the Little League playoffs and asked Mr. Schnell if he could fill in for him to take off the day to see his son play baseball. Of course, he's like, yeah, for sure. So he worked a double shift. So that night, he was putting out barriers. He was running a piece of equipment. This girl that was drunk, high, and texting ran through the barrels and killed him. 2 years to retire. So no grandfather, no dad, no husband, right? Gone. And all she got was a slap on the wrist. And to be honest with you, the signs you see out there is really a disrespect to our members. You know, you get 15 years in jail or 15,000 fine or whatever. Is that worth their life, right? And especially they get plead down. So we look at it as let's do some positive protection and put barriers to protect our members. We could do cameras, we can do all this stuff, but if we're not protecting our members, what are we doing? So 20 years ago, they used to have barriers on both sides. When they were doing construction, I know things got tighter, money got tighter, so they're trying to make the best they can. But we need some positive protection because these barriers they put out now, they're engineered to deflect traffic if they hit it, at least slow it down if it's a bigger one where workers are able to get out of the way. Thank you.
Okay, so we do have a couple questions. Representative Miller.
Thank you for presenting. I understand one of the main purposes is to define these paths and to also slow down traffic. So with that being said, so how long does it take to put up these barriers, and what's the cost associated with these projects on average?
So I would say it depends on how long the construction is, because as you know, if you drive through 10 miles of construction, they're only doing it like a mile at a time. So the barrier is just for at night for where they're working. So if it's a quarter mile, that depends the time, right? So I can't tell you exact time, depends on how many barriers are out there. There's also a zipper wall that they're starting to come out with where actually a machine moves them.
Oh, I wondered about that.
Yeah, there was one machine, in the United States, and I believe one of our contractors just bought one of those machines now. So it's a up and coming thing, right? So they could do it forever. Like, it'd be real easy. The machine just zips up the line, moves it over, moves it out. And about the cost to be straight frank with you, I look at how much is one person's life worth,
Absolutely.
right? Like that, it doesn't. If it costs an extra $1 million a year, I'm not saying that's what it's going to cost, but a hypothetical, is that worth one person's lives, or the 17 that died last year?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yep.
Representative Kuntz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir. Do I understand this is only if they're working at night?
Correct. There's night shift barriers. I mean, we'd like them all the time. So if you want to amend it, we'll 100% support
No,
that.
just so I understand. So if it's a 10-day job or a 2-month job, there's no additional barriers if they're not working at night?
Well, there's just barrels.
Just barrels?
Correct.
Okay, only for night. Thank you.
Yes.
Representative Roth.
William, good to see you again. Thank you, Mr.
always
Chair,
good
for
to
the
see you.
question. What were a lot of freshmen on this committee this year?
Yeah.
So just what were the kind of the things we had to work through last year? I'm just so they're aware.
Oh, well, originally the bill was that the state buys the barriers and they store them, and then it turned into shutting down the freeway as a whole. And then so that one of the barriers was the state police. We need an emergency lane, right? And then we needed language for MDOT for their engineering, right? So there was just the stuff that I don't see, that Eric didn't see, or even Sneller or O'Malley. We didn't see that stuff, right? So that's why we called in the subject experts so we could work through this together.
Yeah. No, I appreciate the work, and obviously I was on I-69 where one of the workers was killed on the bridge when the girl was texting and hit his truck. Mm-hmm. So, and as we stood there and watched vehicles go by, trucks at 75 mile an hour and a 45, we have to do something to protect our workers. So I appreciate you guys bringing this forward.
Appreciate you.
Representative Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for your testimony today. I've got one question just kind of functionally about how these would be placed and when they would be placed, because clearly the prioritization here is nighttime work,
Right.
though in the bill or in any other type of regulation that we would have to adhere to at a job site, is it required that these would be placed 30 minutes prior to sunset? Within 30 minutes of sunset, recognizing that we want to have these in place when they need to be, and to potentially cut down on some of the delays that could potentially be had if these are still being placed after sundown. Is there any regulation that would require that?
Yeah, it's 30 minutes before and 30 minutes, before sunset, 30 minutes before sunrise.
Okay, that they would have to be in place, firmly in place, or being worked on being placed?
Well, I would say firmly in place.
Okay.
Because that's where you get your, low light, so we'd like to do 30 minutes before.
Okay.
And the contractor could leave them there if they want. They don't have to remove them, right? We just want to make sure that they're protected at night, because that's where typically the fatalities happen, is at night. Most of them.
Absolutely.
Not all.
Thank you.
Representative Bruck.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I remember when I returned in 2004 from Iraq, the first day back to work, I worked on telegraph. I'm a line worker in my previous life, and I was more scared next to telegraph working than I was in Iraq being shot at. But I have a couple questions here. What hinders you doing this currently, setting up these protection measures? I know they have, the rear end, protective trucks that they set, and that saves tons of lives. Mm-hmm. But what keeps you from doing this currently?
Well, first, thank you for your service. Let me start there. What currently, it's a cost, right? It's not, if it's not in the budget, it doesn't get done. everything's associated with cost, right? So if you don't have that in a law, then they don't have to do it. So of course they're just going to do the barrels, right? Because that's what the law says.
They're bidding on that.
Correct.
Based off of
Yeah.
that.
So if a contractor bid on it with barriers on there, and then a contractor bid it with barrels on there, the cost is different.
And he's going to get the contract. Okay, and then secondly, would there be a study then, or would we keep track of this? I guess there's no sunset on this particular law that we're trying to pass. What if it doesn't work, I guess is the question.
Well, I don't know if we could do I'm open to a study for sure, and I don't see how it wouldn't work. To be just straight frank with you, right?
Good answer. And within the language, it gives you as a contractor or the contractors, like, I drive up to Gaylord, I've done lots of trips, and in the middle of the night, and there's people there's obviously a couple cars an hour maybe on those roads. Would it give you that latitude to be able to choose to put the barriers up, or would you have to put the barriers up?
Yeah, so through MDOT, we'd see like the heavier traffic areas, right? So you wouldn't have it on like a street road that's in a downtown or something like that, right? So that would be something where it would be looked at of traffic flow and all that stuff, what have you. I mean, honestly, I would say any freeway at night, that's where 324 would like it, right? Because it's protected. You get one person on the road, they get tired, right? You're out long drive, as you know, right? You don't see anything. All of a sudden, those bright lights come at you, right where they're working.
You're running for your life, yeah. But it gives you flexibility. There's flexibility within the way it's written currently.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair.
Representative Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Miller, for being here. Really appreciate it. I'm happy to support this again, and I know this passed the House previously. Why wouldn't we do this during the day too, though? I guess that's my only
Well,
question.
we would love it during the day, but I know last year was the pushback of, daytime work, not as many fatalities. Like I said, when it first started, we wanted 100% on both sides all the time. So I'm always open for, if you want to,
What's the argument against doing it during the day, though? I guess that's what I'm missing.
the argument is cost. If like nighttime work, they do it where they're working at, because nighttime work may vary from daytime work. So say if you're, I'm just making up, say if you're working at 1 mile and you're going to 10 mile, right? Just hypothetical miles there. And you're like daytime, you're at 1 mile, but then at nighttime, you're working at the 3 mile, right? So they would have to move barriers or have barriers that whole way. So that was one of the arguments.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So I do have one card to read in. Not wishing to speak, supports the bill, Troy Hagan from MDOT. And so I do need to make sure I'm at the right place here. Okay, Rep. Fitzgerald makes a motion to report Senate Bill 43 with recommendation. Will the clerk please take a roll call vote?
On the motion to report, Chair Shannon.
Yes.
Representatives McDonald.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Conlon.
Yes.
Farhat.
Yes.
Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Hoskins.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Outman.
Yes.
Roth.
Yes.
Brooke.
Yes.
Kuntz.
Yes.
St. Germain.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 13 yeas, no nays, no pass. The motion prevails.
Senate Bill 43 is reported with recommendation. Next on the agenda, we will be voting out House Bill 4706. This was, we had testimony on this last week. First, Representative McDonald does have an amendment. Did you wish to speak to that amendment?
I will speak to it. Just, it's pretty simple. This is when MPSC, the Michigan Public Service Commission, thought there could be some clarifying notes on this, and we've added language that further defines the sale of charging services, as I talked about last week, to describe them as charging EVs on a kilowatt hour. And that just helps us be very clear about what we're talking about, and also will help make sure that we can get that $100 million NEVI funding that we were talking about last week, that having the kilowatt hour is very important in that. And the second point is that, as I discussed, the point of the bill was to ensure that a small business that wished to do EV charging services would not have to be licensed as a utility, But they wanted to clarify that a utility that had the same services could not then claim not to be a utility based on their offering of EV charging services. So it's actually pretty simple, and you should have the information in front of you, I think.
Okay. Thank you so much, Vice Chair McDonald. Vice Chair McDonald moves to adopt the amendment. Would the clerk please take a roll call vote?
On the motion to adopt the amendment, Chair Shannon.
Yes.
Representatives McDonald.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Conlon.
Yes.
Farhat.
Yes.
Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Hoskins.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Outman.
Yes.
Roth.
Yes.
Bruck.
Yes.
Coons.
Yes?
St. Germain.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 13 yeas, no nays, no pass. The motion prevails.
Thank you. So the amendment is adopted. Next, I have to read in some cards. Did I read? I read, yeah, right here. Yeah. Not wishing to speak, supporting the bill, Brian O'Connell from General Motors. Not wishing to speak in support of the bills, Chris Semmerneck from the Michigan League of Conservation Voters. So I need a motion. Rep. Hoskins makes a motion to report House Bill 4706 as amended as a new substitute with recommendation. Would the clerk please take a roll call vote?
On the motion to report, Chair Shannon.
Yes.
Representatives McDonald.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Conlon.
Yes.
Farhat.
Yes.
Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Hoskins.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Outman.
Pass.
Roth.
Pass.
Bruck.
Pass.
Coons.
Yes.
St. Germain.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 10 yeas, no nays, 3 pass. The motion prevails.
House Bill 4706 is reported as a new substitute with recommendation. We have no absent members, so there being no objection, there being no further business before the committee will stand adjourned.